Hello. Today, wow, that's a lot of lag. Let's reboot this shit. Ugh, what a great way to start the stream. Is that any better? I guess it's a little better. Anyway, we're gonna answer some questions that people sent me. People sent me some questions. So let's answer them. Some of these are questions I've answered before, but I don't care because it's my special interest, so I'm more than happy to talk about it again. In fact, oh shit. Oh no, and the song's so good too. Listen to the song with me. Let's see if this works. Oh, can you hear it? Enjoy music. Unless you're watching this recording, then play your own music because that's just how it is. Sorry. Anyway, I was talking about the messages that people sent me. Thank you for sending me messages about my special interest. I'm more than happy to rant at you about it. So, let's get started. I wish I could make my Spotify public, but for some reason, like, you can't change your username. So it still has the username that I created like a long time ago that I don't want everyone to know. But I can't make another Spotify because it wouldn't have all my fucking user data in there. Anyway, let's boot up an image. I just took a screen cap of this. Here's the question. The question is, why do the rebuild movies exist? To me, they are just disgraceful to Neon Genesis Evangelion, its characters, and everything it stands for. I'm not very familiar with Anno's other works, or him as a person, so I'm wondering if you could answer this question. I sure can, and I'm more than happy to answer this question for you. So I'll just make this smaller and put it up here, and I'll actually put it behind me so that it's hard for people to read. And then I'll get into it. I'll dig into it. So, in order to understand why the rebuild movies exist, we have to understand why Neon Genesis Evangelion exists the way that it does. And in order to do that, we need to do a little bit of history. And for the record, all this is my opinion, and all this is just based on like some research that I psychotically did. So feel free to fact check me on this. A lot of these facts can be checked on Wikipedia because Eva has like a ton of fans who are also really invested in the history behind it. But anyway, without further ado, I think it's mainly because of the like monster that Eva became and the corruption inside Gainax. Anno is one of Gainax's founding members and created a lot of their most iconic work. But in its later years, Gainax was pretty corrupt, and because they owned the IP to the original Eva, I think that probably factored into the reason that, Anno making his own studio and wanting to have like an Eva IP that wasn't affiliated with Gainax back in like 2007 or whenever they decided to make the rebuilds. Probably before that. Um, that was a big reason. It was sort of like a financial reason. The other big reason is to give opportunities to young people in the industry. Eva is such a monster, a monstrous franchise that really dominated like anime fandom for many years. And so to be affiliated with that, to work on that IP would be a huge bolster to any young artist wanting to get into making anime. So I think it was a really good idea in terms of like getting a bunch of fresh talent into the industry and giving them practical experience and giving them, this big name on their resume that absolutely nobody could ignore. So I think those are the two main reasons, and unfortunately, neither of those reasons resemble in any way the reason that the original was made, which was really from like the most sincere and pure possible place that a person could make anything. And I think everyone who worked on it was really on the same wavelength about it, like throughout its entire production. And that was why it came out in the way that it did. So I think that's why the rebuilds exist. In order to build funds for the new studio that Anno created, in order to give careers to new artists wanting to join the industry, and in order to, I don't know, fuck Gainax, I would say. I think those are the three main reasons. And sadly, none of those reasons really make for a good movie. Yeah. Literally rebuild from the ruins of Gainax. I think they were also really trying to, because they wanted the films to be a financial success really badly, there was this push to like appease the Eva fans. And I feel like appeasing the fans of Eva is so anti Eva the way it originally was. So it's just a completely different, in many ways, antithetical work when you compare it to Eva. A lot of people prefer the rebuilds. There are even people who say that this happened to me when I went to see End of Evangelion in theaters before I left for Japan, like almost right before. They did a showing of End of Evangelion in American theaters, so I got to see it in like a theater. And when I was in there, I was like, this is fucking incredible. I got high and I was like, God, I'm so horny right now. But afterwards, when I was walking out the theater, there was some fucking Eva fans walking on the street next to me, and they were like, yeah, you don't really need to watch like the original series, like the TV series anymore because of the fucking rebuilds. You can just watch the rebuilds, but like End of Evangelion is cool, like you can still watch that one. And it's like, give me a fucking break. I'm gonna murder you. I wish I could cut your guts open like you're a beached whale and they like explode out, and then I regret it because they smell real bad. Yeah, I wish I could kill you, basically. There ain't no excuse for that. But, as they say, there's no accounting for taste. I'm sure a lot of people who prefer like dog shit anime would prefer the rebuilds because they don't challenge you as much emotionally. But, it is what it is. Most people are dumb. And they deserve to be called dumb by me. So, anyway, that's why the Rebuild movies exist. And to be clear, while Anno is credited as having created these movies, if you look into it, he initially didn't want to direct them at all. He wanted someone else to do that, but they couldn't find anybody who had the guts to direct Evangelion, and people were like, only Anno can direct Evangelion, which is true. But, he wasn't going to do it a second time. He already did it perfectly the first time. Like, there is no need. He even said, like, oh, we were just reusing the timesheets and storyboards from the original. Like, they were literally just reanimating it. They weren't really, like, rebuilding it. And he ended it, like, twice, End of Evangelion was the second ending to the series. There was no need to, like, do it again. So he didn't want to direct him. He kind of got forced into directing them, and from that position also didn't really direct them. If you look at a lot of the productional materials, is that how you would call it? Materials of production that he worked on, a lot of his ideas got rejected, so I don't really know how that worked. I mean, obviously it's his company, so at the end of the day he was in charge, but I think if people were like, no, we don't like that, I don't think he would have fought them on it because he genuinely didn't care and didn't really want to be doing this project. But because of the reasons I told you about, it was just the best choice. Just production materials. Thank you. I've been drinking a little, so maybe my English is as shitty as my Japanese. Anyways, that's why the rebuilds were made. And Anno didn't really have a lot of involvement in them, like, contrary to popular belief. And you can feel that, because if you've watched a lot of the other stuff that he made, you can feel him in those, You start to see the patterns. Like, he was present a lot more in fucking Shin Kamen Rider and Shin Godzilla than he was in the Eva rebuilds. He really just let people do whatever they wanted. I think the third film extremely feels like an Eva fan fiction. Sort of like an anthology of, like, different fan fictions that, like, people on the staff who were fans of Eva and its characters, like, put together. Doesn't feel like Anno at all. No surprise, because he wasn't really working on it. And if you want to know more about that, you can watch the Anno documentary that was made during the production to see what he was getting up to during that time. There are a couple scenes that have his style, like, written all over it, but in terms of, like, the movies as a whole, he wasn't really motivated to do it a third time, and who can blame him? So, yeah. You hate the rebuilds, so do I. I don't like them. I think they're, a magnificent display of, like, technical prowess. Possibly the best 2D animation out there today, but as movies, they're fucking dog shit. I don't think they're good. But I'm a huge fan of the original Eva. I don't think it's overrated in any way. If anything, despite its notoriety, it's underrated. Yeah, all you have to do is watch those production getaway meetings where everyone is discussing what could happen in the movie, and he's sitting in the corner completely detached and not saying anything. Yeah, like playing with his pen, fucking zoning out. Like, they're all like, why doesn't he tell us what he wants? He's like, he wants to go home. That's what he wants. He wants to play with his miniatures. Alright. And I have another question here to answer. So let's get this one in there. Here's question 2. What a loaded question. Are you into Steven Universe? Currently? No. Was I into Steven Universe at one point? Sadly, yes. Why is that sad? I won't fully get into it, but I'm happy to tell you what I didn't like about the series as it progressed. Obviously, like, I was excited for the series, like many other people at the time, like, when it came out. I like cartoons, I like girls, I like aliens, I like, messy, emotional dynamics, relationships. I like, anime, and there was a lot of anime influence in that show. Uh, what I didn't like, I think it basically boils down to, like, the show is about Steven, and Steven as a character is not only very passive, but never morally challenged or incorrect. Steven never has to learn anything or change himself. He's always right, and it's other people who are wrong and making him suffer. And I think that's really boring. Like, as a protagonist, to have a protagonist like that, I think is kind of boring. And I know that Rebecca at one point said that, like, this is like a magical boy anime. And it's like, yeah, but boys don't need that. Boys don't really need a magical boy anime. They don't really like that. But I guess that's debatable. You could say that boys need a magical boy anime if you want. I don't know why boys couldn't simply enjoy a magical girl anime. But I think the fact that he was a boy was really important because he was literally Rebecca's brother, and the whole show is like a love letter to her brother, and, like, I don't know her brother. I don't care about him, and all I know is that I find Steven really unlikable. Like, especially in the end of the series where it's like everyone's always been taking advantage of Steven's, like, pure-hearted nature, and, like, he finally lost it because they've all been sucking him dry like vampires for so long. It's like, I don't like, there's a lot of parallels between Steven Universe and Cardcaptor Sakura, which, by the way, no one in production has ever mentioned. Nobody's ever mentioned Cardcaptor Sakura. Never mind that, like, Steven's mom died before he could remember her, and she's named after a flower, and she, like, inherited this powers. I feel like Rose is like if Clow and Nadeshiko were, like, fused and they were like one person. That basically makes the premise of Steven Universe and Cardcaptor Sakura the same, let alone the fact that, the movie was the same plot as the Cardcaptor Sakura movie, and the character designs and everything, and even some of the episode plots. But anyway, it's very much Cardcaptor Sakura. Why don't you simply watch Cardcaptor Sakura in 1999? I think you would really enjoy it. I think it's a better show. But, yeah. I think Sakura is a lot more likable than Steven. And I also think this show kind of touched on a lot of topics that it maybe shouldn't have if it wasn't going to kind of follow through with them. And I truly do mean touched, because it would like brush up against these things and then people would be like, oh my god, is it gonna like go into that? And it just wouldn't. So it ended up being pretty boring. But I think if you're in love with Steven, you would really like it. But I didn't care for Steven, so I stopped liking this show. I also hated the fans. I drew a lot of like rape, and the fans didn't like that. But to be fair, I think the creators of the show were, that was what they wanted you to do. Or certainly it was like not off the table. Um, yeah, I didn't like Steven, didn't like Greg. Uh, didn't really care about Ruby and Sapphire. I think the way that I have approached relationships and feelings in my life is so alien from what the show was giving me that it was irreconcilable. However, as a child who lost their mother to death, there was that like part of me that really felt an emotional connection to the series at one point. Um, but I have to say that no, I'm not into Steven Universe, and I didn't like where the show ended up. There were some things that were really entertaining. There was some stuff that was really promising, but sadly, yeah, it didn't really come through for me. But to be honest, like, I've never really been a part of a fandom for like a Western cartoon. It's always been like anime, and I'm more of an anime person. I mean, anime fans are really annoying too, but I think it's like a little different. Um, yeah, I did draw lots of like Peridot smut, and I drew Lapis and Jasper quite a few times as well. Uh, and I think I did it for attention because it was so popular, and like anything you would draw related to that series would get a lot of engagement, and I was really really lonely, and I really wanted the attention at the time. And I think that's something maybe I'll like segue into that now that we're not really talking about this anymore. We're talking about fandoms. um I think there's like two kinds of fans of any given, I don't even like saying a franchise, of any art. There's two kinds of fans. There's the fans who are there for social gratification, and there's the fans who are there because they're psychotic. And the first type of fan is kind of like a fair weather fan. They generally haven't really analyzed the work that much. They probably don't really know who was responsible for the writing or like care. And they're sort of there to like groove with other people who are like them. So you can make a lot of friends easily through association with something that's gotten popular. So these people are really, really common in stuff that, with art that was like recently released. It's new, it's exciting, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of attention. You'll find these people here. And the second type of fan is psychotic, and I mean that in a positive way, but I mean that in the way that they are like first thought in the morning, last thought before they go to bed at night is about this art, and they analyze it constantly, and they're really deep into it, and they, if they have headcanons that are off the mark, they're aware that it's like justified by XYZ. It's not a selfish type of love at all. It's very it's just a completely different thing, and I think those two different kinds of people clash a lot because they're so different and they really piss each other off. Like the people who are just there for social fulfillment don't care what the creator said about, whatever. They just want to like project on this character and like make some stupid headcanons and like party with their friends. They're generally really young, teenagers or like young, very, very young adults, and they yeah, that's the demographic for the first group. And the second group isn't, they're just coming from two different places. Yeah, it's genuinely like a religion. It becomes a worship, you know, of the work, the art itself, of the people who created it. Um, a sort of like feedback loop of emotion that was inspired as a result of the work, and the vacuous gaping hole that was inside them before it was filled by this big, thick, creamy, rich art. Do you understand? So, yeah, there's basically two kinds of people in any fandom, and I find myself getting pissed off at the first group a lot. The casuals, as it were. Even though I was one of them at one point, I was casual, and if I did do analysis, it wasn't that deep. I was just kind of like really horny, and I wanted to draw porn, and I wanted other people to look at it, so that's what I did. And then, like, as I matured, I stopped giving a fuck, like, completely what I thought other people wanted from my art, and I really started to, like, just make what only I wanted. And that was better, but it's not like a cure all. A lot of people talk about it like, oh, if you make what only you want, then you'll your cup will never empty. You will have an eternal fountain of wine, and I don't think that's true. Sadly, some of us have to work. That's the other thing. It's like in fandoms, you you also basically have two kinds of people: those of us with jobs and those of us who are like unemployed and online all day. And there's nothing wrong with being unemployed and online all day necessarily, but there are plenty of people who I think use their freedom for evil. I'll say. But if you have a lot of free time, your internet activities are just going to look really different from someone who works full time. Um, but yeah, if you're fucking psychotic, it doesn't matter how much you work. You'll be on that grind. You'll be making OTP art no matter what. I ran out of things to say. I think I ranted enough. Was there something else that I wanted to rant about? I'm like running out of energy. Ato? Rant about Ato? Uh... あなたの知ってたことを死ぬまで誇りにしたいから。No, not today. Oh yeah, the Nazi stuff. I thought that was way off the mark. I'm always hoping that people say that stuff like that. I'm like, you better be in high school, but they never are. And they're always like way too old for this shit. 人々いるのに人々は愛は先はどのくらい遠いのもう二度と戻れないの私があなたを知り合いたこと。Yeah, I'm gonna call it. I answered your questions. Feel free to ask me more questions and have a nice weekend. See ya.